Hi, everyone, and welcome to Astrological Kairos. We are going to be looking at the first full week of June, June 4th to June 11th. My name is Christa of Practical Astros, and I'm here with Sonia of Celestia Astrology. Hi, Sonia.
Hello. Hi.
How are you doing? Are you excited to talk about all that's happening this week?
I'm excited.
Yeah. We'll fully be in with the sun in Gemini, but there's other things happening. But let's go through these slides real quick. So for the month of June, we talked last week about Venus and Chiron and also the Cazimi that happened on the May 30th. So it still feels like it's kind of trickling over. But this week, we'll be talking about Venus going into Taurus, Mercury meeting Jupiter in the last degree of Gemini, and just a few hours later, Mercury then going into Cancer. And then the next day, Jupiter also going into Cancer. So they'll be meeting up. Mercury's just flying by Jupiter there. And then the full moon in Sagittarius will be, are we going to talk about that one this week? Yeah.
We're going to save that for the week after.
It's kind of a big full moon, as Sagittarius full moons usually are.
Yeah, because we had the big Jupiter going into Cancer. So.
Yeah. Quite a shift this for just the whole year, mainly because of that Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter in Cancer, it's a transit a lot of people are talking about. Not everyone is like just objectively a fan of, mostly because Jupiter will be experiencing a square from Saturn and Aries. But let's take the wins where we can get it. Jupiter leaving exile and going into exaltation is a good thing. Just on its own, it's a good thing. What do you think about the week?
Yeah, it's just nice just to see both benefics entering a happy place.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me happy. It just feels like just feels like a boost after we've had a difficult first 6 months of the year. It's like we've just passed. We're just going towards the summer solstice. I have to get myself centered when we're looking ahead as to where exactly we are, and it's like everything's gearing up to make it a nice chart for that.
And just the Cazimi on May 30th, Mercury will meet the sun. And then I feel like it's going to bring whatever tea or secrets that it has from the sun, and it's going to hand it off to Jupiter before it leaves on Gemini and goes into Cancer. I think that Mercury is kind of a gossip. It's kind of a chatty Cathy. And I just feel like whatever Cazimi secret it's going to give, I like that Mercury meets Jupiter in Gemini before it leaves and goes into Cancer. And then just after that, Jupiter will also go into Cancer. So it's like a little gift that Mercury is giving Jupiter before Jupiter leaves Mercury's temple. It's just nice, sweet.
It's such a protective lunar place, isn't it? It's like going inwards, and we've got that image of the crab and the shell, of that protection that it provides. And it's like, okay, that information is going to nurture you and support you as well. And those benefics are going to support you. And our word of the week last week was allies. And it just feels like, okay, your allies are here coming in. The support is there, whatever difficulties you're experiencing from that first 6 months of the year. It's like the help's arrived, the cavalry's here.
Yeah, this morning I pulled, I always pull 2 tarot cards in the morning, and I pulled the Chariot. And so it's why I wore the stripes, because it feels very Chariot. And Jupiter going into the Chariot card, I just like that. Like, where is he going to travel? What allies is he going to tend to and nurture? And what benevolence is he going to bring, with the motivation of being protective and Cancer, and wanting to really make the environment safe enough so that you can grow crops and you can tend animals and you can make families and you can enjoy the earthly pleasures of life and have that flow in Cancer.
Yeah. Okay. So the first chart, we've got Venus entering Taurus on the 6th of June, and that's at 5:42 British Standard Time. So that would be
just past midnight.
Yeah, 4:42 Universal Time, and just for your local time zone. So I've got beautiful Venus there with her Taurian horns. Doing the bull.
Yeah, similar to the Cazimi chart, we have like just as day is breaking, with the sun and Mercury still in Gemini there. But Venus, at this point, Venus leaving Aries and going into Taurus, she's refreshed and is at home. It's like after traveling from very far away, like you travel, you come off of like a 14-hour plane ride, and all your clothes are stinky or crusty, and you run out all your snacks, and your neck is tired from cranking up trying to sleep on the plane, and you get home and you kick off your shoes and you put all your clothes in the laundry and you take a nice warm shower or warm bath, and you curl up in your own bed, with your favorite pillows. Like all of that is like Venus coming home. There's so much ease and nurturing and comfort and like true rest that Venus gets to experience, having left Aries and then coming home into Taurus. It's just such a beautiful, short-lived, because she'll go through pretty quickly, but still enjoy it while you can, because it will be luxury and ease. And we talk a lot about the Jupiter into Cancer, but Venus coming home into Taurus is awfully nice.
What I really like about this chart as well is we see the moon in Libra, which is her other sign. There's a concept that we look at called liking girding, where there's this sympathy between signs that are in the same rulership. So it's like the moon is the other ruler of Taurus. So to have both of these rulerships, there's this mutual reception here, but also a liking girding between the moon and Venus, both working together for these Libran and Taurian topics. So they're both on the case. They're both working together for all these Venusian significations and these lunar significations. They're hand in hand, if you can imagine them having a tea party in the garden together, sort of, right, how can we do this? And just the champagne's flowing, they've got the strawberries, and they've got all the lovely snacks and comforts, like the Empress card in the tarot. She's got everything around her that she needs, blankets and comfort and everything. And they're really working to bring everybody together, to mend friendships, to bring harmony, to bring beauty and sensuality and desire and pleasure, and just bring people together in the best possible way. And the moon there is looking to bring justice and peace again, and bring people together, and diplomacy. And it may be a time that we see diplomacy in the wider world as well, but also diplomacy in our own relationships. So it just feels really nice that the ingress holds the story for the whole of Venus's transit. So just really nice that the moon was there.
Yeah. Because the hard aspect that she's approaching now that she's in Taurus is a square to Pluto.
Yeah.
Pluto's retrograde at 3 degrees. But I and going on with the travel theme, it's like that square to Pluto is like the unopened email or the mail that you collected. It's like, I know I've got some stuff to deal with, but I'm going to wait a couple of days to open it up. I know it's there, and I'm just going to enjoy the rest for a few days before I open that mail. And I think you're right that imprint of the ingress chart, having the moon there in Libra trines Pluto. So maybe there is some sort of aid of justice with that trine from the moon, the Libra house, at least, to the Aquarius house, that can provide some insight or guidance to that square. It'll be something that she approaches and will square later on in her transit through Taurus. And also as she's approaching Uranus, what did Uranus do to disrupt things, like the screen just going away? We were talking about how Uranus disrupts things, and then that is exactly what we were experiencing. So the ingress chart of Venus going home into Taurus, being supported by that liking girding and that mutual reception of, Libra moon, but then also the unearthing of maybe future challenges with going into a square with Pluto in Aquarius. That's where we were at when Uranus was like, did somebody say disruption? So
did somebody call me in?
I think we talked about it enough. We can go to the next chart if you want.
I just had there to say that Venus is there until the 4th of July, when she'll move into Gemini, and she's not under the beams while she's there. So she's empowered.
Yeah. We've got Jupiter conjunct Mercury. So at that very, 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 very last degree, 15 minutes away from the ingress into Cancer, we have Jupiter and Mercury there in Mercury's temple, conjoined together at 29:45. So like I was saying before, I feel like there's something that happens at the Cazimi with Mercury and the Sun, that now Mercury is whispering to Jupiter before it leaves to go into Cancer. And then the day after that, Jupiter also leaves Gemini to go into Cancer. So there's some sort of secret sharing. Jupiter and Mercury, they rule opposing signs. So Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces. The opposite signs of those are Virgo and Gemini, which are Mercury. So there is this dance that Mercury and Jupiter have together. Mercury likes to cut things up and looks at things in a separate way, and Jupiter likes to scrape them all together and make one amalgamation of things. It likes bigger picture. It likes the forest, while Mercury likes the trees, sort of a thing. So the two of them are these opposing signs. They have kind of opposite natures, but it doesn't mean that they can't work together. And the blending of the Mercury Jupiterian things and themes, I think, make for a really beautiful dynamic energy. So I like this Cazimi together, especially at that final degree before they move into Cancer, where Jupiter will then be exalted. Maybe whatever secret Mercury whispers to Jupiter will help and be that ally and that support as Jupiter transits through its sign of exaltation.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for things if you think about like data and spreadsheets, but take it out into like contracts and negotiations and things like that. It's really good for really tying things up like that, buying and selling. Mercury can relate to commerce, and Jupiter's bringing everybody together and wants to build something. Jupiter does want that unity, so it is great for that. Like you say, having just come from that meeting with the sun, just bringing that new information into those contracts and into those negotiations, just bringing them to an end before it passes into Cancer.
And also the moon is, it's in Scorpio. It's about to move into Sagittarius, where it will be full. So there's this energy of building and culminating. So that tension of that anaretic degree with, Mercury and Jupiter there, but then the building of that energy of the moon about to be full in Sagittarius, I think it's just about a couple of days later, that the energy of the building up to a full moon is often how we experience the full moon. Like the moon looks full for a couple of days before it's actually full. And so those two energies kind of married together does feel like a kind of a overinflating of things, or a hope of something growing larger than it is, and an illumination as the moon reflects this light. So I think that the two, even though they don't see each other, they're Scorpio and Gemini are averse to each other, there is a sense of that moon in Scorpio building up to that moon in Sagittarius, reflecting the communication or whatever contracts or hopes or investment or whatever happens in the mercurial realm of Gemini. I just like those two together.
Or even if you're writing or anything like that. I mean, one of the archetypes for it from the Archetypal Explorer is these epic poems and these long books, or really long series like Game of Thrones or Tolkien series or anything. So it's like anything that's like epic with characters that go on and on. So if you're doing any sort of writing that's going to be like legacy related or into a saga or a series or anything, that's like really well aspected here for this conjunction, but also for that full moon as well.
Yeah, I love that.
As this is building.
And the tension between Venus and Pluto there, Venus moving closer and closer into that square. I can't not see it, that is also happening while this conjunction with Mercury and Jupiter are together.
Yeah, Jupiter's now sort of under the beam, so I don't know how that might have been the case before as well.
Yeah.
Sextiling Chiron in Aries. So like the information coming through might be about our sense of self and what challenges it as well. And the wounds that Venus was talking to Chiron about last week might be coming into this, maybe if you're writing about that, it might be well aspected to write about. If you're struggling with any wounds about your sense of self, put it down on paper or type about it into your laptop these days. But
voice note, an epic voice note.
Yeah, yes. Blow up your friends' phones with Jupiter and Mercury. Would love that.
Yeah, because Mars is also still involved in that. Mars is at 25 degrees with Chiron at 26. So that Venus-Chiron conjunction had Mars also kind of connected to it. So Mars and Jupiter is, they're 4 degrees away at this point, but it's moving in. It's still kind of moving in that same storyline that the Venus conjunct Chiron was beginning to really express.
Yeah, it's like that fire of self-identity. So it's like really that whole conversation is about who are you, how are you showing up? Mars cutting away what isn't authentic and really saying, what are you battling for? Like that last decan is about the banner, like Austin Coppock calls it the banner, and what do you rally towards in a battle in medieval times and everything. It would always be a boy who'd be holding the banner of the army, and that might be a focus point, even though it wasn't somebody who was armed or was in the fight, but it was a focal point to rally around. So it's like, what is your banner? What banner are you flying? And what do you represent as well? What do you fight for? And who are you when everything else is stripped away? When Mars doesn't have the armor and he's not carrying his weapons, what banner does he identify under? It's so much of our political correctness, isn't it? About
Yeah.
do we identify, what are your pronouns or whatever? And it's like, how are you identifying? And just being really authentic about that. And maybe there's a wounding around that and a way to speak that into the world that could be asked to be changing. There's a square with the nodes there.
Yeah, I think next week we'll talk about the sun squaring the nodes.
It's just coming into being, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's maybe a karmic story that's coming through from the eclipses that's starting to form. But yeah, it's separating for these two, isn't it? And I think then Mercury is going to shift in 3 hours, and we just have a quick look at that chart because that's happening on the same day.
Just before midnight, London time.
Yeah, so that's the 8th of June, 23:58 in London, so 22:58 in Universal Time. Mercury, keep my slide still. It's a loss of dignity for Mercury, unfortunately. That's probably why he doesn't want the slide to stick.
No, leave me in Gemini, please.
I prefer the Gemini chart. And yeah, he's away from Jupiter and the Sun. He's the first one into Cancer. So that's, yeah, he's traveling that new ground, preparing it for them into emotional Cancer. Asking, what do we protect with our thoughts and our words? You know, Cancer is that sign of the crab, that hard shell. And maybe our hard shell is those thoughts and words that don't necessarily align with our feelings inside. Is everything aligned? And can we improve that? You know, does it feel wrong sometimes when we say things? Are we hiding things? And it's a cardinal sign that means sometimes things can happen fast, and sometimes we can begin things and they don't always end up being exactly how they started. But we can start something and we can allow it to shift as it moves through the fixed signs where we sustain it, and then it goes into the mutable sign where it ebbs and flows, and then goes back into that cardinal sign. But here we're initiating something. There's new thoughts coming through. So Mercury's traveled from that Cazimi where he had that meeting with the sun, and now's where he can really start to make things happen in that protective way. And we quite often talk about the mama bear, don't we? Hear that archetype of Cancer, because it's such a protective lunar sign of who do you protect in the world, as well as protecting yourself, that soft inner self, but who are you looking to protect as well with your thoughts and your words and your ideas? Who out in the world are you looking to protect? Are there people or groups or countries that you're looking to protect with your thoughts and your actions?
The host of Cancer, the moon is fallen over there in Scorpio, and Jupiter is exiled at the anaretic degree in Gemini. So the host for Mercury is kind of unfortunate, to be honest. The ingress chart is rough because, you know, with Mercury and Gemini, if you imagine just someone soaring through the sky, and then as it gets into that last degree and is heading towards Cancer, it's like plummeting to the water. And it can see the water where it's going to slow down, and it's going to be laden down with the emotional weightiness of water. But as soon as it hits, it also hits rocks because it's squaring that Saturn and Aries. Saturn and Aries is fallen. And that square between Saturn and Mercury, it's just rough. It's just a rough ingress chart for Mercury to, you know, having gone through a Cazimi, having connected with Jupiter, you know, being in its home sign, and, you know, being trined by whole sign of Pluto. You know, it's just got a lot going for him as far as like new things and new revolutions, but then to plummet into the rocky, wet, sodden world of Cancer, whose own hosts are not in good condition at the ingress, it's just rough. I think that Saturn square is just like salt in the wound of Mercury leaving its sign of home, but it'll get easier as it goes through. But I think the ingress itself might be a little tricky.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that Mercury may be picking up speed there as it moves away from the sun, which may help it move faster through there. But worth bearing in mind that the words that others speak may wound us because of this ingress chart being so challenging. So to bear that in mind if others around us speak words that are hurtful, and also to watch our own words as well with this difficult chart here, that Saturn in Aries is also fighting for who he is, bringing that weightiness, just to give some grace really to people who are struggling and maybe lashing out and saying the wrong things because of this.
Yeah. Yeah, the potential for injury through words, I think, exists this day. And also the moon is still building to become full. So it's like things might feel a little inflated. And just the moon in Scorpio is very sensitive and incredibly, I think, intuitive moon. It can really feel the injury in ways that maybe weren't even intended, but it can feel like the energetics of it and really embody the hurt and remember them, especially with Mercury in Cancer. Mercury in Cancer kind of remembers all ails that has ever been given to it. With the moon there, interpreting it through Scorpio, can distrust pretty easily. So I think after the moon starts to wane, that Mercury in Cancer will feel taking it a little less personally, maybe.
Yeah, it won't feel better maybe until the moon gets to Taurus and the moon gets to Cancer. It'll have a balm for those wounds. It's like a week or more.
I think even when the moon gets to Capricorn, the moon's not at home in Capricorn, but at least it'll be waning and it'll reflect back. The moon and Mercury like to talk. And so I think it might offer some perspective. Moon in Capricorn can be a little cold, but also true, and be like, listen, this really wasn't about you. I think that's really what the moon will say back to Mercury. Like, stop taking it personally.
Yeah.
Stop taking this conversation personally. It is not about you.
Yeah. Because when people do lash out with pain, it rarely is about the other person. It's about the pain and the wound and where it came from.
Yep.
It's hard. It looks hard. It does. And I suppose that's what some of these aspects are. But that's why we're looking to these benefics for that support. Once Jupiter moves.
Speaking of, is that the next chart we have?
Yeah, and Mercury does have that that sextile to Venus.
True.
There is a woman or women or female comforts maybe waiting there with some support. So that Mercury maybe who wants to lash out or the person who's wounded has some support there from Venus in Taurus, or maybe just a nap or a snack can fix things. Have a nice cup of tea, as us British like to do.
Yeah, I mean, the first decan of Cancer it's called the Lord of Love. It's the Two of Cups. It's two people kind of coming together, cheersing this new partnership. It's tropical, it's cardinal, so there is something new. And the first decan of Taurus 1 is the Five of Coins, which is two people that are injured and kind of crawling away from the church in the snow. And how do you merge those two together? If you see someone in need, I mean, really, the best way to take you out of your own problems is to go help someone that is in bigger need than you are. And so, Venus can signify daughters and women. And so if you're kind of having a rough time, just going and volunteering, like showing up in a sense of support to those around you, like younger people around you, or, sisters or girlfriend groups or whatever, just be like, I need to get out of my own head, which is Mercury. Need to go support somebody else, and that will help put things into perspective. So maybe you don't take it so personally, or you appreciate the problems that you have. Maybe it's actually a good problem to have. I mean, it can be all sorts of ways to kind of hang around the pain, because the pain will always be there, but maybe just having the pain get out of your own head and be in that supportive way of supporting people, and that way inadvertently supports yourself.
Yeah.
Support. That seems to be, went from allies last week. It feels like support wherever you can find it.
And then we get to
the cavalry runs in.
Here comes the support.
The next day. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about Jupiter going into Cancer. Jupiter has been in Gemini for about a year. It will be in Cancer for almost 13 months, which is nice, all through 2025 into June of 2026. It will retrograde a little bit, but we have this new experience of Jupiter in Cancer. It's exalted there. Moving out of exile, it doesn't have the fatigue of having to figure things out on your own. Just there's always misinformation. And we think of Jupiter and Gemini as being like fake news, half-truths, alternate facts, whatever you want to call it. That will always exist. I think that we'll have a little bit more maybe choosing and trusting the sources of information that we gather with Jupiter and Mercury there in Cancer, of like really listening to what is actually truth that makes real change, not just what I want to see. Jupiter in Cancer relies on the support of its allies. And so we look at the moon. The moon's transit while the Jupiter's in Cancer, I feel like is going to be significant, that we should pay attention to the lunar phases. The moon can signify the people, and having the moon shift, every 2.5 days could be kind of a tumultuous time of Jupiter in Cancer, because that's the moon's home. And so as circumstances change, being able to kind of show up, support, rest, whatever the phase is, I feel like that we will all become a little bit lunar, and for better or worse, while this transit is happening. But I like Jupiter in Cancer. I have Venus in Cancer, so I'm looking forward to Jupiter conjoining my Venus. I feel like it'll be helpful, even despite the square from Saturn. I'm just looking forward to it, and looking forward to experiencing how, like, we kind of mythologize the easier planets. We mythologize Jupiter and Venus. We mythologize the moon. We want the best from them. It doesn't mean that there aren't difficulties that they also present, but they're there to kind of help us navigate the difficult times. And I'm thankful to have them as we navigate difficult times. So I don't think it'll be smooth sailing, but I'm glad that we'll have this for the year, because I feel like we'll need it. And if anything, Jupiter in Cancer is going to be like, take the wins when you can get them and appreciate them. Small incremental change is still change, and don't just look at what coulda, shoulda, woulda. Don't look at what could have been. Look at what you have and show appreciation for it, so that you can continue to move forward in the direction that you want. So I'm a fan of it, and I know it won't be easy, but I'm still a fan of it.
I love that. That's such excellent advice. Yeah. Stay in the moment and take what you have, and just like those people who do gratitude practices as well. It just makes you think of that, doesn't it? I mean, I've got a list there of Jupiter significations, like bringing order and unity. And sometimes he's called the mage, like, because he has such wisdom. He carries that wisdom of the ages, because he's one of those older planets, and nobility and abundance, good luck and expansiveness. And so he brings that in, but the shadow side can be if he's expanding something you don't want him to expand. So like with Cancer, where it can be like our wounding and that vulnerability that Cancer carries, that shell and the vulnerability that's underneath. If you have vulnerabilities that you're hiding and you don't want them expanded, that's the risk with Jupiter in Cancer, that it can bring those to light, and it can expand those and bring your attention to them. I think could be something to be aware of. And Mandy Ray's made this beautiful slide at the beginning, and it reminded me of the shadow, like the devouring mother archetype. Like if Cancer is the mama bear, and how it can easily tip over too far to where the mother is, do they call it like helicopter mothering or something like that? It's just too much micromanaging the mother, and the child doesn't ever get to grow up and become independent. And that's the shadow side, and Jupiter can expand all of that if that balance isn't quite right, to allow the child to find its independence. But she's got that lovely quote there at the top: the greatest gift you can give someone is your time, your attention and love, your concern. So yeah, it's not like telling people what to do or controlling them. It's just your time and your love, and just offering that care. So she's given us these key historical dates when Jupiter was in Cancer for every 12 years. So we're looking back to June 2013 to July 2014, and June 1942, going back a fair way, to July 1943. So I wasn't here then, but I can look back to June 2013 to get some idea of the significations. It won't be exactly the same, because the other planets will be in different positions. So you can't expect that it's going to repeat exactly the same, but it gives you some ideas of some of the like Jupiter and lunar themes that you may have experienced then. You might have similar themes repeating, if you can think back then and think of what themes you were expanded for you, and that Cancer place in your chart. And these are some of the keywords that Mandy Ray identified: that emotional growth and abundance, that expansion of the nurturing, that nurturing side of the lunarness, and the protective wisdom of Jupiter, the intuitive guidance, like leaning into that wateriness of the moon, and home and family as sources of strength. That's like a Cancer signification. And the compassionate leadership. Jupiter wants leadership, and Cancer brings that compassion to it. And caring and empathy, that's very much Cancer signification. There's very few people with strong Cancer placements that don't offer care and empathy, that you can't talk to with your problems. They very much create a safe space for them. They're not going to take your problems and use it in a way that
Yeah.
I'm going to betray you with that. And tradition and security as well. That's something that Jupiter brings you, and that security coming from Cancer. And generosity through connection, that in the way that the group meets and the connection that can come from that, and like that network building, but also the supportive way that can happen. That supportive community building, go out into your community and see what you can offer your community and what they can offer you. That JFK quote, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for them. But also bring that down into your local area in whatever way that looks like for you. And sometimes our local area now can be also our networks online as well. It doesn't necessarily mean our local streets, however your community looks for you, look at how you can give back and make a balance of what you give and take, and growth through care and understanding. So really lean into those keywords and see how they're showing up for you as Jupiter moves, because quite often the ingress carries a lot of weight as well.
Yeah, and I'm reminded of just the joy scheme. So there's different houses are the joys of different planets, and the joy of Jupiter is the 11th, and the joy of the moon is the 3rd. And those are the two rulers of Cancer, on the exaltation and the domicile. And just the community, all of these words kind of fall into the 11th and 3rd house themes of growth and leadership and caring and abundance and connection. Like they are really related to each other in that sense. So yeah, I love all these. Thanks, Mandy, for putting them together.
She's done some great work with these slides. I think our word of the week was sounding like support, was it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a continuation of allies, but support, not just the support that you give others, but support that you ask for. I think will be kind of a theme of Jupiter Cancer, is like learning to ask for help when you need it and offering it when you can. So thanks, Sonia, for talking about this first full week of June. And we'll see you next week for just before the solstice. We still have some Gemini left to squeeze out of this turnip.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.